Hello and welcome to Fast Horses Today for the special Kentucky Derby edition. The Kentucky Derby's run on Saturday, that is May 2nd, over at Churchill Downs. It is the 12th race. Has approximate post time about 6:57 Eastern, so that's 5:57 here in the Central Time Zone. And for those folks there on the West Coast, it happens just before 4 o'clock. So let's get started with the Kentucky Derby and get to the handicapping here. I've got a horse that I like that I'm going to make a win bet on. I also have a trifecta ticket that I want to talk about as well. So we'll get started here. 12th race, Kentucky Derby. They are going 1.25 miles on the dirt. And, certainly, a field of 20 there that, we're scheduled to have in. I mean, we're doing this on Tuesday, so there are several days before the Derby. There might be scratches, but I know they do have a list of also eligibles. So we are doing this as, handicapping as the 20 horses that are scheduled to run are going to run. If there are some scratches, you'll have to make some adjustments on your ticket. So let's get started here. So I'll have something to say about every horse here, some commentary about each horse, that I've studied here. So, the one horse here is Renegade. Renegade is 4-1 in the program, and that 4-1 is your morning line favorite. So that's the morning line favorite here. We'll see if the horse goes off as the favorite of the day. I'm pretty sure the connections there were not happy with drawing that one hole. I know that several years ago they had changed a gate over there at Churchill Downs. They got a new starting gate, which did create a little more room from that one position, because before it was nearly impossible for a horse to even get out of the gate and run cleanly from that one hole. It's been improved some, but I don't know that it's been improved that much. I still think it's going to be a tough spot, to come out of. Irad Ortiz is going to really have to be breaking on his, running, and we'll see. It just looks to me like it's very tough when you've got 20 horses. Horses do get shut off. Trips are a big deal. Renegade looks like a nice horse, but I think that one hole is really going to cost them and really cost the ability to win the race. The two horses, Albus. Albus comes in for Riley Mott. That's the son of Bill Mott, who won with the Great Sovereignty last year. Albus comes, by way of New York, winning the Wood Memorial. Manny Franco's on the horse now. Franco takes over from Jaime Torres. Now, I do like that Wood Memorial finish by Albus, and also the second place finisher, Right to Party. I thought those horses both finished nicely. I know that the Wood Memorial has lost a lot of its luster in previous years, where it's not even really been a factor in a prep for the Kentucky Derby, but it's been knocked down to a grade 2. I think the horse ran a nice race, and the way he ran, you could see horses like that making a move in the stretch and maybe hitting the board in a race like the Kentucky Derby. So, Albus certainly could be a horse that, could run underneath, and maybe your exacta or your trifecta. He's going to have to overcome, a few things. He's by Yalpan. Yalpan's a new sire. Yalpan was a sprinter, and, I don't know if the Yalpans really want to go this long. So we're going to see, Albus will be testing that. But 30-1, I think, has a chance, maybe hit the board in your exotic plays. The three horses in Intrepido for Jeff Mullins. Mullins brings this horse in from the west. The horse came by way of Santa Anita, having run in the Robert B. Lewis and the Santa Anita Derby. It looks to me like Intrepido, maybe he just did max out last year as a 2-year-old. He ran some really nice races. It just doesn't seem like he's been the same this year in his couple races. And, I don't know if the connections were looking to do a 45 workout just before the Derby, or, if that was just a mistake. I'm not exactly sure. Reports had it that Hector Berrios actually traveled to do the workout, so I don't really know what's going on there with a 45 flat work, on the Sunday before the Derby. So, to me, that really kind of sharpens this horse up, and I think he'll be part of a speed brigade. I feel like there's several horses that, have speed, and I think they could cook it up fast, and Intrepido could be one of them based on that work. They're going to have to probably really tone him down. So I don't see Intrepido doing much, maybe just being up there towards the start of the race and then just folding up, towards the end. Now, right next to him, we have Litmus Test for Bob Baffert. Bob Baffert puts the blinkers on this horse. Now, it's interesting to make a move like that, in a race like the Kentucky Derby, to put the blinkers back on the horse after it was off. This horse had been running with blinkers, so I'm not too sure of the changing there. To me, it looks like Litmus Test will be part of the speed brigade as well. As we've seen, Baffert horses over the course of his career always show speed, always show, that forward position. I think Litmus Test We'll also show that. He's got Martin Garcia on the horse. Garcia has certainly ridden for Baffert over the many, many years now, and it just looks to me like this horse will probably be up there running up close and part of the speed pack. I really don't see him finishing up much or doing anything towards the end of the race, so he's going to be a throwout for me. The 5 horse was Right to Party for Kenny McPeek. Kenny McPeek puts Elliott on the horse. Now, Elliott's ridden this horse the last couple times. This horse has come by way of New York, having done that aqueduct path coming out of the Gotham and the Wood Memorial. I thought he ran a nice second in the Wood Memorial to Albus. Showed up a lot of finish there, and this is the kind of thing where I do feel like there's going to be a lot of speed in this race. I think the fractions might be a little hot as well. A Right to Party could finish up, towards the end, and maybe get involved with your exotic bets and your exacta, trifecta, superfecta. Right to Party, I think, just can get a slice, maybe a 3rd or 4th place finish, at a big price for Kenny McPeek and Chase Elliott, the jockey on the 5 horse Right to Party. Now, the 6 horse is Commandment. Commandment comes in for Brad Cox, and Luis Saez takes the call. Now, I don't know, many of you have opened up a racing form and studied racing forms over the years, as I have, and I don't know if you ever get the feeling when you just open up the racing form to look at a race and a horse jumps off the page. That's really what happened with Commandment for me. Now, to be quite frank, I wasn't paying a lot of attention to the prep races, around the country. I was just keeping kind of a little eye on them, but figured I'd look into it when the Derby, as field, in fact, was formed. Now, I see Commandment, in his starts this year, he come out of Gulfstream Park, so he's taken the Florida route here to Kentucky. I studied the film on Commandment, seeing that he started out this year running in the 1-turn mile Mucho Macho Man. I thought the horse ran a really nice race. I mean, he was a heavy favorite to get that done, and he got it done in fine fashion. Cox followed that up with putting the horse into the Fountain of Youth, which I thought the Fountain of Youth race was a really nice race, considering that was his first 2-turn race. And in Gulfstream, when they run the 1 1/16 races, that's a short stretch. It doesn't give a horse... I mean, first of all, Gulfstream, it's really tough to close anyway on that main track. And then when you're talking those 1 1/16 races, you've got even a shorter stretch. So when a horse can close, make ground, it really makes me take notice. It's very similar to how I took notice of Sovereignty last year and how he was able to close in those Gulfstream Park prep races as well. So Commandment, I thought, did a really nice job. First time going 2 turns in the Fountain of Youth, and I thought he got up and ran a really nice race, beating Chief Wallaby, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Chief Wallaby looks like a nice horse. Commandment followed that up with another really nice race in the Florida Derby. Now, Flavian Pratt rode the horse that day. Now, here's my question on Commandment. He's had so many different riders. I don't know why riders are not sticking on this horse, but I'm not going to give that too much credence. I think this horse is very nice. So anyway, Pratt had the horse in the Florida Derby. I thought Flavian Pratt gave this horse a masterful ride, as Flavian Pratt does. He kept this horse back. It was almost like an education in some ways, where I think Brad Cox was trying to figure out what this horse is about and what he's capable of, and also trying to improve him each race. So Pratt stayed back with this horse. It was only a 6-horse field, but it was a very talented 6-horse field, I thought. And I thought the horse ran a really nice race. He ended up circling the field, getting up by a neck, ended up beating the Puma, who the Puma's a really nice horse as well. We'll talk about the Puma a little later. He comes in the back half of the field here. So I just really liked the way Commandment did what he was supposed to do. I thought it was an educational race, if you can believe that, a Grade 1 Florida Derby being an educational race. And the horse just really, to me, passed with flying colors and really showed a lot of nice ability. I really like his last 16th of a mile, where I thought this horse really came running. And as I mentioned, over the years I've noticed that at Gulfstream Park, it's not the easiest thing to do to come running like that. So when a horse can do that, I really think that they're showing a whole lot of talent. So now Luis Saez takes the horse here, and I think Luis Saez really got fortunate that he got on a horse like this for the Kentucky Derby. So Saez, should be no problem on this horse. He's one of the best riders in the country. He gets it done, and he's somebody that you can rely on in a big race. Certainly, gets it done in big races. Has ridden well for Brad Cox over the years as well. They've made a nice team. I like the breeding of Commandment. Commandment being by Into Mischief, as we've seen Into Mischief do everything. And, son of Into Mischief won last year's Kentucky Derby with Sovereignty. He's out of a mare by Orb. Orb's a former Kentucky Derby winner as well. I think that happened in 2013 with Joel Rosario was Orb. So that should be stamina there. And Commandment at 6-1. That's going to be my pick for the Kentucky Derby. I really think Commandment has even more to give than he's given already. I don't see a problem with the distance, going 1.25 miles. I like his running style. I like the stock running style that he has. It's just a matter of Luis Saez has to just get a nice position, which, he knows what to do. Get that nice position and finish up strongly, which Commandment has shown that he does. So Commandment is going to be my pick for the 2026 Kentucky Derby. He's 6-1 in the program. I'm going to figure we'll probably get somewhere around there. I mean, the betting gets spread out among a whole lot of horses, and 6-1 I think is a pretty good price for a horse like this. He's had 5 starts, 4 wins. His only loss coming out in his career debut, and he ran a sprint race over at Keeneland, but I thought he even ran a nice race there. So I like the 5 races that this horse has run. He's won 4 of them. I think the horse comes into this race in really fine fashion. The horse looks fresh to me. He's been working at Churchill Downs in a nice way. The horse has a win at Churchill Downs, having broken his maiden there last year, so he handled the surface. And Commandment is the Kentucky Derby selection for me. I think he will win the 2026 Kentucky Derby. So we will make a win bet on him, as well as, I'll use him in some of the multi-race wagers on that day, on that Saturday. So going to go with Commandment. All right, let's mention the 7 horse here is Dannon Bourbon. Horse comes from Japan on a 3-race win streak. The horse has won by open lengths, for 3 of his races. I'm not, exactly sure who the horse has run with. I wasn't following the races in Japan. But what we have seen is over the years, the horses from Japan have really done very nicely when they've shipped over to North America. So there was a time when you could automatically throw out horses from Japan, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't have Dannon Bourbon anywhere today. I'm not exactly sure where this horse is going to go, in this race. He's going to probably be close to the lead, but I don't have this horse doing much in the Kentucky Derby, so the 7 Dannon Bourbon's a throwout for me. The 8 horse, who is So Happy. So Happy comes out of the Mark Glatt barn. Mike Smith on the horse. Now, So Happy is a horse I was familiar with, having really, I do follow the Southern California circuit, pretty closely. So Happy was a horse that I know Mike Smith really liked, and was really excited. I remember an interview after one of his stakes wins that he thought the horse can do much better and do longer races, which the horse has proven to do. I mean, ended up winning the 1 1/8 Santa Anita Derby and won that race nicely. So Happy's 15-1 in the program. Mike Smith, as I mentioned, on the horse. We'll see a lot of features and a coverage for Mike Smith, being the age that he is and the fact that Smith has been ridden in so many Kentucky Derbies and having won a couple of them. It's a nice story to see Mike Smith still riding at the top of his game. But as far as this year's Kentucky Derby, I don't have So Happy doing much. I think he'll probably be somewhere in the middle of the pack, and I don't know that he'll be finishing up and doing much. So I have So Happy as a throwout. The 9 horse is the Puma. The Puma comes in for Gustavo Delgado. Javier Castellano is legged up for this one. Now, Castellano's ridden this horse in his last 2 starts. I think the Puma has run some really, really nice races. In studying the film of the Puma, he's just run really well. He got beat by Commandment, who was my pick for the Derby, and didn't get beat by much. This horse was not stopping. I think Commandment just came and got him. So the Puma's a really nice horse. We're going to see the essential quality horses, fairly new sire. He's had some nice horses, this being one of them. The horse certainly should be able to go the distance. Essential quality was a long distance horse. And, the horse, the mare being by declaration of war, I know that's European breeding. And, the 2 turns should be no problem, as the Puma has shown no problem there. And, with the extension of distances, the Puma has run. Puma, very nice horse at 10-1. I do feel like the Puma, does have a shot to win, certainly off his races, and the fact that he ran really well with Commandment. But I've got this horse, probably, in the money, maybe finishing 2nd or 3rd. I'm not going to pick him to win, but I think the Puma's a really nice horse. I just think Commandment's going to be better, though. So we'll see about that. The 10 horse is Wonder Dean. This horse coming, by way of the UAE Derby, came through that Middle East series of races with the Saudi Derby and the UAE Derby. But this horse originated in Japan. I still haven't seen horses that come from those Middle East races, the Saudi Derby, the UAE Derby, doing a whole lot in the Kentucky Derby. So I don't know, how much Wonder Dean is going to be able to do here. 30-1, he's a throwout for me. The 11 horse was Incredibolt. Incredibolt comes from Riley Mott's barn. Riley Mott has a couple horses in this race. This horse comes from a path that I really haven't seen much success out of either. He coming out of the Virginia Derby. That's a fairly new path. When Churchill Downs, decided to use the Virginia Derby as a prep, that's a 1-turn, 1 1/8 race. I don't know what it really does for you going 2 turns at 1 1/4. So Incredibolt is a throwout for me, that being the 11. The 12 horse was Chief Wallaby. Chief Wallaby comes in for Bill Mott. And we all know Bill Mott, having won the Kentucky Derby last year and won years ago as well with Country House. Same team here, Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado. Chief Wallaby looks like a really nice horse. Gotten beat by Commandment, not by much in his last 2, so he's run really nicely. They're putting blinkers on. So again, I don't know. It's a little interesting to put blinkers on, for a race like this, so they're seeing something there. This horse is 8-1 in the program. I think this is a very nice horse. I think this horse probably needs a little more seasoning and experience. I think it's going to be a little tough to win a race like this coming off of 3 starts. I guess if anyone could do it, Bill Mott certainly can do it. But I think Chief Wallaby is probably not as good as Commandment, so I can't see him beating Commandment. But, certainly I can see this horse hitting the board. He's been improving in each start, and, certainly can improve as well from here and can definitely hit the board at 2nd or 3rd, probably at a nice price. So we're going to put Chief Wallaby underneath in the gimmicks and the exactas and trifectas. So that's the 12 horse, Chief Wallaby. 13 horse is Silent Tactic for Mark Casse. Christian Torres takes the call. Now, Torres has been riding this horse in his last several. This horse has come through the Oak Lawn path of, going through the Kentucky Derby, having run in all of their preps. Now, this horse ran very nicely at Oak Lawn, having won the Grade 3 Southwest, and then coming second in the Rebel and in the Arkansas Derby, coming second at Renegade. He's run nicely. I just don't know what was out there in Oak Lawn this year, if the quality was as good as it has been in years past. My feeling is that it's not as good, and I don't see Silent Tactic doing much on the first Saturday in May. I don't see this horse, even hitting the board. That's a throwout for me, that being the 13 Silent Tactic. The 14 is Potente for Bob Baffert. Now, Baffert's got a couple hairs we expect every year. Baffert certainly has horses in the Kentucky Derby. This horse is a lightly raced horse coming out of the Southern California circuit, out of Santa Anita. And, 3 starts, 2 wins in a second. So certainly a nice record. This horse was purchased for a big price, being a $2.4 million purchase. So, the owners probably wanted to see this horse in the Derby. That was, I'm sure, one of the goals with buying a horse like this. Horses run nicely, but I think the lack of experience, the lack of seasoning, and also I'm not sure that Southern California had the best horses in the prep races this year. Potente could be a horse that would be close to the lead, but I just don't see that he's going to, finish up and be there at the end of the race. So Potente, the 14, is a throwout for me. Emerging Market is the 15. The 15 horse trained by Chad Brown. Flavian Pratt takes the call. Now, this is certainly a team that we see all the time at Saratoga and at Keeneland when Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt get together, riding for Claravich Stables. These guys do make a really nice team. Now, Emerging Market does look like a pretty nice horse. The Claravich Stables usually have very nice horses, so that's not a surprise. This horse is 2 for 2 in his career. Broke his maiden over at Tampa Bay back in February in his first start of the year, and followed that up with a pretty nice win in the Louisiana Derby, with a nice closing kick and a nice stretch run. Emerging Market does look like a nice horse. You got to probably, wonder, hey, Flavian Pratt, I'm sure, had choices. Ended up on Emerging Market. It's probably a lot to do with it, is the connections and the fact that Chad Brown and Claravich puts Flavian Pratt on a lot of winners throughout the year, so he stuck with this horse. I just don't know. I mean, this would be a Herculean training job for Chad Brown to get this horse ready to win a Kentucky Derby off of 2 starts. And two starts that happened here this year. Historically, it used to be very difficult for a horse that didn't have a start at 2 to run as a 3-year-old and win in the Kentucky Derby. So I'm going to kind of apply that same principle for Emerging Market. Looks like a nice horse. Can certainly run underneath, maybe run second, run third. But I don't know that this horse would be ready to win the Kentucky Derby at 1.25 miles based off 2 starts. So don't see a win here, but, could certainly get into your gimmicks. Now the 16 is Pavlovian. Pavlovian for Doug O'Neill, Edwin Maldonado on the horse. Maldonado's been on this horse twice. Now I think this horse, really just has one way to go, and this will be your speed in a race, or tried to be the speed in a race. This is how he's run in his last 2. He won the Sunland Derby, held on by a nose. This horse certainly fights in the stretch because he did the same thing in the Louisiana Derby, running, 1 mile and 3/16, stuck there the whole way, just getting beaten by Emerging Market at the end. So this horse certainly has a lot of nice speed and a lot of nice stamina as well. So we're going to see Pavlovian. I'm sure he'll be on the lead. That's just what this horse does. And that's what Edwin Maldonado does, frankly. He's a very good gate rider, good speed rider. We're going to see. I think that there's, 3, 4, maybe 5 horses that can cook it up early, including Pavlovian. And we'll see what they have, at the top of the stretch. But, I just see Pavlovian being a pace factor, but not more than that. He'll fold up in the stretch, in my opinion. 17 is 6 Speed. 6 Speed by Not This Time. And they took this Not This Time colt over to UAE, and he did his running over at UAE and, during their race meets. 50-1, Brian Hernandez takes the call here. Now, Hernandez, we know, knows Churchill Down, has won the Derby before on Mystic Dan. I just don't see much out of 6 Speed here. I don't really give much credence to the UAE route to get to the Kentucky Derby. It's not been done before, and horses really just haven't even done much from coming from that part of the world to the Kentucky Derby. So 6 Speed is certainly a throwout for me. The 18, it was Further Ado for Brad Cox. Now, Cox does have a couple here, including the horse that I think is going to win. Further Ado is a nice horse, having run some big races. And, it looks like when this horse shows up to run, he runs and wins big, as he did twice at Keeneland, 2 races by a combined 31 lengths. So, when this horse puts it all together, man, he looks like a real world beater. Does like Churchill Downs, having won the Kentucky Jockey Club as a 2-year-old last fall. He's certainly done a whole lot right. Ran very nicely with the Puma, who I talk very kindly about the Puma. I think he's a very nice horse. Further Ado certainly has a shot to get in here. Not a bad horse. Of course, the breeding is nice there. Gun runners, we see gun runners doing great things, all over the place. And they certainly can run a distance. 6-1, John Velasquez takes the call, because Irad Ortiz had been riding this horse, and Irad Ortiz went over with the 1-horse Renegade. And, Further Ado could certainly get there and hit the board. That's what I think. I'll have him underneath, but I don't have him winning the race. The 19 is Golden Tempo. Golden Tempo for Cherie DeVoe. Jose Ortiz takes the call. Now, I know DeVoe and Ortiz have been a really nice team and have done a lot of great work and a lot of winners, especially when Jose Ortiz decided to ride at Fairgrounds the last couple winters. So that's certainly what this horse did. Had wintered over at the Fairgrounds, having run 4 races at the Fairgrounds, ran through their series of races, the LeCompte, the Risen Star, the Louisiana Derby, showed up in each of them, hitting the board, winning the LeCompte, and then coming third both in the Risen Star and in the Louisiana Derby. I watched a film on him in the Louisiana Derby, and, he just couldn't get to Emerging Market or Pavlovian for that matter. So I don't know that, I don't see Golden Temple doing anything as far as winning the race. Possibly can get there for a slice. A lot of tired horses in the race. As I mentioned, I do think there's be some fast fractions in this year's Derby. So a horse like Golden Tempo could be running late, because he does, trail the back of the field. Could be running late and certainly get a slice. But I just don't think he'd be good enough to win this race. But we'll put him underneath, that being the 19, Golden Tempo. And then finally the 20 horse, who is Full Effort. Full Effort comes in for Brad Cox. So Cox, as I mentioned, does have a few of them. Tyler Gaffleone takes the call. This horse is 20-1 in the program. Now, this horse spent the winter over at Turfway Park, running on their synthetic surface, having won their big race, the Ruby Stakes race. That's the grade 3 there. And, horse can certainly run a distance, has shown that. I just don't know that the, first time being on dirt is going to really be a good thing for this horse running in this kind of race for Full Effort. The connections put the horse in. Certainly, these are high-profile connections, spending a lot of money in horse racing, and I know these are races that they certainly target. So Full Effort in here. I don't see him doing much. We'll have to certainly improve running onto the dirt first time. So that's the 20 full effort. You know, the also eligibles, not going to really mention them. I don't know if they get in. If they do, I don't see anything coming out of that also eligible list. So that's this year's Kentucky Derby. So let's recap the field and recap the bets. Okay, so for this year's Kentucky Derby 2026, I do have a win bet I'm going to make, and I've got a trifecta ticket that I'm going to give a trifecta key. So my win bet is going to be on the 6-horse Commandment. And we're going to make a trifecta here. We're going to go dollar trifecta. We're going to put the 6 on top of the 1, 2, 5, 9, 12, 15, 18, and 19. Now that dollar trifecta key will cost $56. I feel it's worth it. I think that we'll get a nice price on Commandment. I think we can get some good prices behind that. And a $56 play on a trifecta should pay pretty well in a race like the Derby. So if you see fit, you want to play that ticket, I wish you the best of luck. If you want to add or subtract to it, you do what's best for you. If you want to make the win bet, best of luck there. So thank you so much for watching Fast Horses today for our special Kentucky Derby edition and selections. Let's wish the folks over at Churchill Downs a very safe day of racing over the course of the weekend. Let's wish ourselves some good trips and some good luck. Good trips, especially in the Derby, makes all the difference in the world. So again, thank you so much for watching and listening to the picks. You can like, dislike, make comments. Make good comments, make bad comments. I promise to respond to everybody, and let's create a discussion. So thank you for watching the Kentucky Derby coverage. We'll be back for more coverage on Fast Horses today. Thank you very much.